Good morning and welcome to all, particularly all guests, as now all of us gathered here today for the offering of this Mass and this Sunday. Many of you probably have to come here between the downpours of rain, as we had earlier this morning. It's a blessing that all of us are here. Allow me to give you an update about Father Paul Eishoff. For our guest, he is the founding pastor of the Church of St. Benedict, and as many of you know, you received probably a message from me at midweek. He was in a serious automobile accident this last Monday while he was in Hilton Head, South Carolina on vacation with another priest, a classmate of his from the seminary from another diocese. They were in a vehicle that was parked that was stopped at an intersection, and they were rammed from behind by a pickup truck. Father Eishoff has injuries, has multiple bone fractures, including a broken sternum and a collarbone. Also, he has a concussion. So he was hospitalized in Savannah, Georgia for several days. I'm glad to tell you that he yesterday was transported to here back in the Tulsa area. He's at St. Francis Hospital, where he will continue his recovery. Please give him a couple of days to settle in before people want to go to visit or to send cards or messages. I did get to speak to him once on the phone. Part of my responsibility as vicar for priests is to, when something like this happens, to make sure about who's taking care of what. So we fortunately got him back home late yesterday. So we continue to pray for his recovery. Please know that I will be gone next weekend. I'll be leaving on Friday. I'm going to go on a camping trip up in southwest Missouri. But Father Porter will be with you for all the masses on the Labor Day weekend. You should probably have noticed by now, I've been here for a little over a year, I don't travel much. And when I do, I usually drive to where I want to go. But I do go by plane every now and then, such as last month I went up to Chicago for a national meeting of the Vicar for Priests from throughout the United States. So I do know what to do about getting on a plane at an airport. And that includes that you got to be there on time, which means you got to be there a couple hours at least before the plane leaves, because you've got to check your luggage, and maybe you have carry-on or maybe one or two bags, but you got to check your luggage. You've got to go through security, which means you've got to go through that scanner thing. You got to empty your pockets. You got to take your shoes off, and I have to remember to take off my St. Benedict medal, which is underneath my shirt, because I have forgotten to do that before. And you set off that scanner, you get a lot of attention that you didn't really want to have. They bring that one thing over you, and trying to see what else you might have on you. And also you have to stand in that thing like this, and it goes around. I'm sorry, but there's an episode of the original Star Trek series in which Captain Kirk is put in this thing that swirls him around, and they're making a replicant android. And I have that in my mind every time I go through that scanner at the airport. I'm being scanned and something, which, believe me, one of me is enough for the world. So, but I know what to do when we go to the airport, because if you get there at the last minute, you may not get on the plane, even though you got a ticket. That doesn't guarantee you a place, because if you running late because you maybe got there late, took longer to get check your bags, it took longer to get to security than you thought, the flight's going to leave without you. Now, maybe it might wait for you to get there if you're somebody important, like maybe the pilot. Maybe you're the owner of the airlines, a celebrity. But if you do get there late and you're holding up everybody else, you can have a lot of dirty looks as you walk on the plane, lots of daggers coming at you from people's eyes. People are going to miss their connecting flights and so on. You can't rely on having a special status that the plane's going to wait for you to leave. Or if you get there at the gate at the last minute, you increase the possibility that you're going to get bumped from the flight. Because what often happens with commercial airlines is that they will overbook the flight. There might be 55 seats on that plane. They might book 60 people because they know that some people are going to cancel at the last minute. They're not going to show up for whatever reason. But if they sell 60 tickets for a 55-seat plane and all 60 show up, and you're the 60th person to show up, you're not getting on the plane. They're not going to strap you to the wing or anything like that. So just because you have a ticket doesn't guarantee that you have a seat. And for those who travel light, when you fly by air, who don't put things off to the last minute, who don't rely on some special status, To reach the destination, you're going to reach your destination easier and sooner than those who do not. And I think that holds not just on traveling by air, but also for our salvation. I think that's the lesson of discipleship that Jesus is teaching in today's gospel reading from Luke. On his way to Jerusalem for his passion, crucifixion, resurrection, Jesus invites us to follow him, take up the cross each day. And along the way, we've been hearing this summer from one Sunday Mass to the next, Jesus teaching us what it means to take up the cross, what it means to be disciples, what it means to be the church. And we hear today, as they're going to Jerusalem, when he's asked if only a few people will be saved and be in heaven, Jesus gives an indirect answer. He says neither yes or no. He does not say that everybody, by default, goes to heaven, as if it were some kind of participation trophy, just simply for being born. Now, that may be a difficult teaching to hear in our time and place in which the idea of universal salvation is widely accepted. But also notice that Jesus did not say only a few people will be saved, or only those who have a special status, a special category, special ethnic background, language, racial group, or something like that. He doesn't say that they get a free pass to get into heaven. He says there are restrictions. But notice who puts them there. It's not God. God is not putting restrictions for us to be in the kingdom. God invites all of us and gives us a divine invitation that we've received to share in the life of God through Jesus as Lord and Savior. But we should not presume that we get a free pass. Accepting this invitation means to strive, as Jesus puts it, or I think seek or even struggle at times to get through what Jesus calls the narrow gate. Now, at the time of Jesus, a city, if any size or importance, would have a wall around it to protect it. And there would be a main gate into the city that was wide enough and tall enough to allow a lot of things to pass through. Carts, wagons, livestock, and so on, bringing goods into the city and goods out of the city. And usually the main gate was flanked on either side by two narrow entrances in which you could pass through probably only single file, on foot, traveling extremely light, hardly any baggage at all. So you could bypass the traffic at the main gate. Think of it as if like the Pike Pass of its day. You know, here on the Creek Nation Turnpike, if you got the Pike Pass, you don't have to pull over and wait your turn to put in the coins, whatever, in order to go on. I've got the Pike Pass, so it's great. You just go right through. You don't have to slow down. Now, if you're on the Cimarron Turnpike going west to Stillwater or to Enid, you've got to slow down to about 30 miles or less an hour because it flashes. It's telling you how fast you're going. Yeah, a lot of people nodding your heads. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, so a bit annoying, but okay, that's what you got to do. You got the Pike Pass, but you don't have to stop and wait. You get through a lot quicker. To get through the narrow gate, as Jesus teaches, notice what needs to take place. Those who want to drag along with them their religious and social status, their material possessions, and their ambitions in seeking easy access to salvation are going to have a hard time. Have a hard time fitting through that narrow gate. Those who travel light, who keep their eyes and actions on seeking and at times struggling for salvation, will get ahead of the others. To travel light, without the baggage of status, possessions, and ambitions, means to conform our lives to that of Jesus, to daily carrying the cross, allowing ourselves to be transformed by grace. The grace of reconciliation, the grace of the Eucharist that we've gathered here to receive today. Because the narrow gate is not just symbolic. The narrow gate is Jesus. And we will fit through that narrow gate to the degree that we have been seeking and even struggling to conform our lives to His. Just because we have a ticket does not guarantee that we have a seat on the plane. Just because we have a specific status in life or even in the church, we do not get a free pass through the narrow gate. To me, at this point in my life, at this point particularly in my priesthood, the most sobering, if not terrifying, words in the entire New Testament are among the ones that we hear this morning. Lord, open the door for us. We ate and drank in your company. You taught in our streets. And Jesus replies, I do not know where you're from. Depart from me, all you evildoers. We cannot presume a special status in order to enter into heaven. We have all been given the divine invitation, clergy and laity alike, the restrictions that lie before us to follow Jesus of our own making. Entering through the narrow gate is difficult, but also Jesus says it is not impossible. For this reason, we once again gather here on this Sunday, in this sacred place to do sacred things as God's sacred people, the church. As disciples, we come seeking, at a time struggling, to conform our lives to that of Jesus, the narrow gate. We come in response to the divine invitation to daily carry the cross and to follow him. We come seeking to shed the baggage of our status, of our possessions, our ambitions. We come knowing that the obstacles in our way have been put there by ourselves. They are of our own making. We come to share the life of God offered to us in the gift of the Eucharist, our nourishment for this journey as Jesus teaches the lessons of discipleship so that we can pass through the narrow gate.